Good morning. I'd like to call the Agriculture Service Board meeting for April 3rd meeting to order. The meetings are recorded and may be posted on official Wheatland County social media channels. Agriculture Service Board is conducting this meeting in person and via conference call in accordance with the Municipal Government Act, Section 199. Council Chambers is open for public attendance in person while continuing to use the current telecommuting process in place. All right, we have an agenda before us. Any modifications or changes?
Yes, I'd just like to add a letter from Minister McIver as information.
Thanks, Member DeSmit. That we'll add that to correspondence. Item number 4.1. Any other changes?
Yes, we have regrets from Joe Harrington's presentation this morning. He can't make it this morning, unfortunately, but he said he would reschedule.
Another time? Sounds great. That's too bad. I'm sure they're very busy right now, so I can understand why he might not be available. Any other changes or updates? No. If not, then a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Also move.
Thanks, Member Bigger. All in favor? Oh, and I'll just mention for the record, Member Wilson is unable to attend today. So, sorry, I didn't realize. Oh, I see. Okay, Member Larson will be back, I guess. Okay. Adoption of the minutes from the January 10, 2024 meeting. Package. Any changes or errors or omissions?
I'll move the adoption of the minutes as shown.
As presented. Thank you, Member Reichert. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Next agenda item. So maybe we will. Is she on the line? Oh, okay. Well, let's start. Our first presentation is with Linda Hunt, Program Director of Alberta Farm Mental Health, regarding AGNO. Linda, are you there?
You betcha.
Hey, excellent.
Can I just share my screen? Will that work?
Yes, should.
Should work. We'll try it anyway. There we go. You seeing the AGNO? I have to run it as I can't run it in presenter mode today. I usually have somebody that can transcribe for me, but she couldn't make it, so I have to write my own notes as we go. So forgive me, it's not quite as flashy as we usually are. So
that sounds good. I think we had a flash of your presentation, and now we see.
Oh, it's gone. Let me try again.
Yep.
I do have rural internet. I'm just, warning everybody.
Exactly.
So
there it is. Yeah.
Now it's working?
We can see it. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Awesome. So thanks for inviting me today. I had a lot of fun talking to George at the ASB conference, so I'm glad we can get together. And we're just trying to spread the word a little bit more about AGNO, and it's really important to us that we connect with our stakeholder groups, and we consider the ASB one of our key stakeholders. It was the ASB resolution in 2019 that got the ministry to try and find a way to work on farm mental health here in Alberta. And they provided the money to Erica to do the needs assessment and get a research program started here in the province. So we got that going, and now we'll just run through a little bit. It's about AGNO, but I also want to pick your brain on what you know about farm mental health in your area. Come on, you can do it. So this is a little bit about our, it kind of summarizes our mission and our vision and some of the stats that are kind of pushing us to do what we do. So there has been recent research about farm mental health and the mental health state of our farmers across Canada. And it's aligning very strongly with what they found in Australia Europe and the United States, that farmers are experiencing higher rates of anxiety, chronic stress, and depression than the regular population. And this is for many, many reasons, which we'll kind of talk about as we go through this. And the research is also showing that farmers are actually really resilient. I personally, I'm a farmer. I'm an agrologist. I've worked in agriculture research and extension with the government, and then done my own contracting. So I have about 20-ish years experience working with farmers on production topics for adoption and making them work on their farm. And so as a farmer and as an agrologist, I can say that there is a lot of stressors that farmers have. And because of those stressors, the ones that I kind of think it's natural selection that we've weeded out over the number of hundreds of years. And we have this culture that tends to be more resilient. Farmers are really good at reframing. They're really good at planning ahead, and they're really good at accepting things that are out of their control, because it happens all the time. So there's some really good messages of hope on the resiliency side, but we are seeing elevated levels of anxiety, stress, and depression. And what the research is showing that is not usually just one event, but it's a combination of a whole bunch of events stacked on top of each other. So it's not just, drought for 1 or 2 years, but it's drought plus regulation changes plus. And then in Canada, we are experiencing a lot of changes, especially in the oil and gas sector. And those changes are affecting not only your farming operation, but often are affecting the off-farm work that farmers are doing to kind of manage the risk on the farming side. A lot of those jobs are with oil and gas. And so those changes that are coming down on the oil and gas policy side have a dual impact on our farm operators. So how we're going to start this out is we have this video, and I hope it plays for you. If you attended, how many people attended the ASB conference here? A few. So you might have seen this already. But I'm gonna play it, and then I'm gonna ask you questions about it. So it'll be a little bit different than what we did at the ASB.
Linda, is there sound on your video?
Yeah, are you not hearing it?
We don't hear it.
Ugh! There's so many tech things. Like, oh my gosh. I can play it on I'm gonna play it on YouTube and see if that works.
Okay.
Yeah, it's totally working on my side, so I don't know what's wrong with your internet, but mine works. How's that? Is it making noise?
No, we still don't have anything. Mm.
Well, this does not help my presentation at all.
On our system.
Oh,
Let me think about this.
if you could,
Or we can just search it.
yeah, could
Do
we,
you wanna
maybe we
just
could search it on
Yeah, I
our
can put
side.
it. Okay, that's a great idea. I'll put it in the chat.
Put it in the chat, sure, and then.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry about that. I thought it
That's
would,
okay.
oh, you know what? I think I know what's going on. Now I know for next time.
Huh.
Like every time you do this, there's another technical glitch and you learn a little bit more, so.
Okay.
I'll stop sharing. It's only a 2-minute video, so it shouldn't take too much time. How many people here are farmers on council?
How many of us are farmers? I would say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 would be Jason. Yeah.
Yeah.
7 out of 9.
That's pretty good.
One grew up on a farm.
Yeah. Well, in Wheatland County, it'd be hard pressed to find people that have zero interaction with agriculture at some point.
Okay, we got the video with the sound.
Awesome. Thank you. There we go. So I'm assuming it's done then. to the
Yes,
next
it is.
slide.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Thanks, Linda.
Okay, I didn't get to hear it, so, but
Oh.
I've heard it a lot of times, so. So if you noticed in that video, it kind of summarizes everything that we're working on. I'm just trying to share my screen here. It did that same thing where it came on and came off. Here we go. Did that work?
Yeah, it's coming.
Awesome. Awesome. And the thing I like about that video is that it talks about it not only talks about or shows visually the stressors that we're seeing and hearing from our farmers, but it also demonstrates what supporting somebody and reaching out and helping somebody looks like. So if you notice in there, the first thing he asks is I missed you. I missed you at the barbecue. You missed out on some brisket, right? So he's communicating that I care about you and I'm noticing you. And that's really helps with those isolation and lonely feelings. And the next time he phones, he doesn't like, how are you anyway? Like, what's going on, right? He calls and he's like, how's the herd doing in all this smoke? So I understand. I see what you're experiencing and I understand and I'm reaching out. And he gets brushed off a second time. The last time is when he phones. He asks, so how are you really doing? So he's established some trust. He's established some understanding. He doesn't take the brush offs personally. He's persistent. He tries at different times of the day. And he catches that Merv in all sorts of different situations. Now, if we look at what happened visually, then maybe you can help me with this piece. There we go. So what are stressing farmers out? Just from the video, you got some ideas, but what are the things that you have noticed in your own life and with your neighbors in the wheatland area specifically? What are you noticing that is stressing farmers out?
I'd say a really big thing is rising input costs.
Capture that a little bit when he's going through his spreadsheet in the dark with all his bills. Anything else?
Decisions on selling grain, timing and pricing.
Yep.
What about weather? Yeah,
Weather, yeah.
weather and drought.
Specifically drought these days. Yep.
Just
We got lots
thinking-
of participators here, so.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about the video. There's a few in there. I don't know if you guys noticed when he's getting in the tractor and he kind of pauses in his leg. That's the chronic pain piece. There's a lot of chronic pain management is another one. Okay, well, there's a few more on the video. Does anyone know? Isolation.
For me, government programs, lack of timing, it is getting better. Farmers expect changes in the weather, growing conditions.
Yeah.
But the lack of support at times from government or the lateness of it. The things you can't control.
Yeah.
I just noticed he had mentioned he was alone and that the kids had his own life, maybe implying his partner had passed on or was incapacitated in some form.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about the perception of the public that they're potentially doing harm to the environment. That's a huge stressor to a lot of people.
I actually saw a video yesterday from the World Economic Forum that was talking about a city in Colombia where they built these green corridors. They've been doing it since 2016, planting trees and vines and stuff. And they've actually cooled the city off like by 4 degrees or something. And in that video, it actually says that 70% of our climate change is because of cities. And I was like, what? Not cow farts? Oh my God, who knew? So that's, so yeah, that perceptions of the public is huge. And I don't know if any of you guys have Netflix, but I went on there and looked at their documentaries and stuff, and it's horrible how they portray farming. So I think that one is actually a big one. My son is in culinary arts at NATE, and he had to suffer through a whole presentation about how farmers are killing the environment. So it was great. Yeah.
So tied to that and tied to Glenn or Member Kester's as well is just the government regulatory framework that is affecting agriculture, whether it's with carbon pricing or anti-fertilizer. Yeah, like there's obviously just going to be pressure on the ag sector, both federally and globally.
Okay, so that's good. You got quite a few of them, and all of those were, I think, captured mostly in the video. The other one that we get is that we just know about, but nobody talks about, and we don't really have a dialogue around it, and so it just kind of is there, and everybody knows about it, but it's not really discussed, and it's not on the top of mind of the mental health people that are providing support for farmers. But the other one would be the depopulation. Western Canada has been hit with more depopulation than the rest of the country because we just have more livestock here. So depopulation is removal of livestock from a barn or a farm because of disease or weather or anything that has to get all the animals removed. And there's lots of good research happening around the world that is looking at the long-term impacts that has on farmers and farming communities and their neighbors. And it can be quite devastating. There's a lot of trauma that happens and a lot of poor coping that can happen after that without some intervention and support. So we know with avian influenza and chronic wasting disease and the horse one that's this long that I can't say myself, that there's a lot of depopulation that's been happening in Alberta over the last 3 or 4 years. And the government is working on emergency response plans for hoof and mouth and also for African swine fever. So as we look forward to that and are preparing for that, we're hearing from our vets, and of course there's a rural vet shortage as well, that there's vets leaving the industry because of the pressures of having to be feeling isolated and like the pressure is all on them to figure out what to do in these livestock situations. And then supporting the farmers who are going through their own trauma in the situation and feeling that they need to support them as well as their own mental health. And I don't know if you know this about vets, but they tend to be really soft-hearted towards animals. And so these depopulation events can be really, really stressful for them. So these are real problems. How do we keep rural vets? How do we encourage more to come here? How do we provide supports for them so that we have rural vets available to support our farmers and the health of our communities? And then also how do we build those supports in for our farmers so that the vets have a safe place to refer people? There's work being done in the University of Guelph, and they suggest a crisis liaison worker, which would be like a social worker that has the mental health background, but also understands the system of depopulation, specifically like the CFIA process and like that, so that they can support farmers and be that in between. Because right now it's like farmers dealing with a regulator, and a regulator is not responsive to the farmer, and the regulator's job is not about the farm being sustaining. So they have no obligation to engage with the farmer over and over and over and over and answer his questions in what makes sense for the farm. They have to go with their regulation. So having someone in between that can kind of be that resource and help walk through that system, I think is something that we need to seriously look at here in the province. And that's one of the topics that we want to in our next 4-year grant. That's what we're working on. So we've already got a working group together with some vets from the vet college, as well as the provincial vets and some farmers that have been through depopulation in the last couple of years, giving input into that and trying to figure out how we can build that capacity within the province. So we have been doing some research. We started a research program on the left side here is what FCC identified in one of their Rooted in the Strength document as the things that are stressing farmers out. And on the right, we have what's come out of our preliminary research. So as you can see, dealing with bad weather, time pressure, lack of manpower, and equipment breakdowns, that really is characteristic of how short our growing season is. The farther north we go, the shorter the growing season, the more intense those pressures are. And because our business model is so short and intense in certain parts of the year, it's really hard to justify and have the economics to have some help year round. And so these are some of the big challenges for farmers in a northern climate. It's also really hard to borrow equipment, right? So we carry an extremely high overhead cost in the north. And I know we don't really think about that because that's just what we do. But in the south, where you can take an extra 2 or 3 weeks to get your harvest in and it can stand in the field, it's not a big deal. You can borrow or have 2 or 3 people with a combine, or you can use custom combiners. But the farther north we get, the harder it is to use a custom combiner to get those. So we end up, everybody has their own, $1 million combine, and everybody has their own $500,000 sprayer, and everybody has their own truck and their own trailer. And it's just a cost of our short growing season and the business model that we have in Canada, that we have extremely high overhead costs, which increases the risk when we have those things we can't predict, like weather. Now, the planning for retirement shows up here, and if you know farmers, you know that they're getting older, and that's what the trend is. There's a lot of different statistics. One of them, the most severe one I heard, is that 75% of the farm assets are turning over in the next 10 years. And so you have a lot of farmers, you hear that narrative often, I got stuck with a farm and nobody's going to want it. I don't know what I'm going to do with this. And they've been cash flow poor their whole life. But slowly and surely the equity has been increasing. And especially in the last few years, the equity amounts have increased to the point that when they get to the end, they don't know what to do with it, and everybody has their hand out. And so there's a lot of farm dynamics. If every single one of the farm transition studies that I've read has farm family dynamics, and dealing with the members of the farmer in a family farm situation is number one stressor when it comes to farm transition, and a huge barrier to farm transition. So that's the other topic that we've engaged with some ag professionals that deal with farm transition. And we have our therapist network that knows about farming, or our farmers themselves. And we're getting them together so that they can support families. So the ones that are coming to the therapist have know who to send them to as for an ag professional when they get to the point that they're ready to have those deeper conversations and build that farm transition plan. And the ones that engage with the ag professionals first and then get blocked because of their family dynamics know people that they can refer them to kind of work through that, with the hope that over time we'll have that full blanket care for wraparound care for farmers that will help to increase the number of farm transitions that are happening in the province. The second problem with farm transition is our transition specialists in ag, the ag industry people, the amount of people in it is really small. And so to get those people to invest in something that has a lot of heart and emotional input in order to accomplish it's a barrier to getting people to engage and become proficient at farm specific transition. And so our guys are getting older and they're retiring. And so how do we encourage young people that are coming out with a farming background, that are going into finance or business, to specialize in farm and to see the opportunities that they can to support farmers through farm transition over the next 10 years when so many farms are transitioning. So that I can tell you about. If we can get this going here. So the other thing I wanted to talk about was coping strategies. And I meant to ask you this, and I didn't. What the top coping strategies are for farmers. And when we asked this question in a group of farmers, they were, like going on trips and all this kind of stuff. But when we did the research and asked hundreds of farmers, this is what came up. Doing hobbies, socializing, and exercising. And for exercising, most of those were walking on the farm. So all of these I notice are things that you can do happily on your own farm and don't have to go anywhere with. But I mean, hobbies could be playing sports and stuff like that. So there could be some of that community volunteering that's captured in there. Socializing with neighbors and friends. And in fact, in our study, they talked about, or they asked farmers about what are the top 5. So we just went through the top 5 stressors, and the very least amount of stress, like the ones that were at the very bottom, were volunteering in the community and lack of close neighbors. And so that socializing and volunteering in the community and just being active in the community is actually one of the top resiliency strategies that people in the rural area, and particularly farmers, engage in. Would you say that's true in your experience?
Yeah, I would say that's probably, I think probably everybody does quite a bit of volunteer work for sure. Then I guess, yeah, depending on your age and stage of life, I suppose it's different.
I would think so too. There was 350 people, I think, that participated in the study. And this is what they kind of came out of that study. Well, this is preliminary, so it'll go through peer review and we'll see if that still ends up being the top 3. But yeah. So when we took all of the answers about what was the hardest, what's stressing people out, and then we clustered them into 5 clusters of work stress. The 5 clusters came out with was uncontrollable factors, which is equipment breakdowns, bad weather, and time constraints. Working hazards was another one. Isolation was the lowest one, actually. But the highest one was environmental pressures, uncontrollable factors, environmental and public pressures. So that really aligns with what you guys were saying was stressing farmers out, was the weather and all that kind of stuff, but then government regulations and the programs that are supposed to be helping us. And then the next one was planning for the future and finances. And I think that that farm transition scenario that we're in right now is contributing to both of those.
Has there been any work on or any comments on self-worth? I'm talking more like you'll hear on the internet or on TV, farmers are poisonous because of this Roundup chemical, and places have banned it. But yet all the studies show that it's good, and I think is it the PMRA now is looking at Roundup again? Sorry,
Yeah.
about, I don't know who that is.
Yeah, and I think that falls under that regulations and public trust piece, right? So PMRA, this is, I'm going to put on my ASB executive assistant hat for a second, but PMRA and CFIA are supposed to be totally science-based. And they're supposed to be not really responding to outcry on the internet and that sort of thing. But we've seen them make some very strange decisions. Some of the changes that they made to livestock transportation, for example, when the research shows that it's the onboarding and offboarding of animals onto those trucks that causes them the greatest amount of stress. And so it's actually better to go a little bit further, leaving them on the truck, than it is to unload them at specific spots. When the CCA and Alberta beef producers pushed them on this issue, they said, well, it's a public perception issue. So if CFIA is responding to public perception issues, that's where the Roundup comes in. The other thing that PMRA, when you look at some of the changes that they're making, they're broadening the amount of scientists and who they trust to give input, and they're starting to go with more post-secondary and a few other institutions. And as soon as that opens up, you know, we sort of eroded our public scientists that we would consider trustworthy, and because they're public, that they're responsible to the public and not to their own ambitions. Then there's opportunity for those decisions to be more impacted by public relations and what the public thinks. So I know when I talked to the commodity groups, and I forget what it was, that Team Alberta group, and I forget exactly which commodity group I was talking to, but I asked them about some of the deregulation of herbicides. What we're finding is they're deregulating ones that are impacting Western Canadians more than the ones that they're doing in Eastern Canada. Likely because the lobby, they are more reactive there. They see that it's happening where it takes us a while to catch up with what's going on. They said that their approach was like, let's not do any review of the process or the system. It's working great. Let's just keep going, because they don't trust within this current administration of our federal government that it won't be a little bit more radicalized when we have the environment minister as we do and the prime minister as we do in their beliefs. And so they've been just trying to keep everything, let's not change, buck the system, and just try to ride out this administration has been their approach to it. So definitely, I think those regulations and what's happening there is something to be concerned about and be engaged in. Does that answer your question?
Somewhat.
Okay.
The answer will be when we get more trust from the public. I know it's a tough one. And there's always somebody. You can always go on the internet and find what you're looking for. If it's derogatory or praise, you'll find somebody saying that, right?
Yeah.
But
And it's so big, like the social media and stuff, and it's gone for so long. I don't know. It just seems really overwhelming to change public perception. But I do think that we are making some good strides when it comes to carbon capture under grasslands and how we're managing our grasslands. A few of the videos and a few of the conversations around that, if you're following regenerative ag at all or carbon capture at all, the narrative is kind of changed and they want to support farmers. The other thing that's changed is the public really wants, especially post-COVID, wants local food. Like not having food in their grocery store was hugely concerning to them. Those supply chain disruptions actually really injured a lot of people, and we're still seeing those effects. The first beef conference after COVID, I was able to attend, and they had that retailer, what's his name again? He does the market research on the retail side. He's getting so old, and I'm so sad because I think he's going to retire soon, and who's going to take his place? But anyway, he said this is the first time that in his whole career where when the economy is doing well, everybody cares where their food is and it has to be ethically produced and we need to know everything about it. He says, and as soon as we go into a recession, everybody goes for a bargain and doesn't care anymore. And he said post-COVID is the only time he's ever seen where that didn't drop off. They want to know it's local, they want to know it's sustainable, and they want to know it's going to be there in another pandemic. So how long we can ride that out, I'm not sure, but I see more positive messages in support of farmers. We also see this when we do our recruiting, because we're recruiting mental health people and we're looking for the ones that are either treating farmers, currently farming, or grew up on a farm to be in our network. And so we interview a lot of therapists, and there is just a passion to support farmers right now. Like people want to see farming thrive. Now, a lot of them have this really funny idea of what a farm is, and it's more of an old McDonald's sustainability kind of farm than it is the kind of farms that we have. But each time that we have a conversation, we have the opportunity to teach them a little bit about what is agriculture, and we make those connections. So it's been one of the best parts of this contract that I have with Agno right now, is meeting so many people and being able to talk to them about agriculture in Alberta and spreading some good messages. And it is a focus of our program to continue doing that. So.
yeah, we need more programs like yours for sure.
Okay, so let's get into resources. I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention to time. Do I have a little bit more time? Or I can just skip this?
No, you have lots of time. Go ahead.
Okay,
Yeah, thanks.
okay. So I'm curious, what if you had a farmer or as a farmer yourself in your area, and you're under a lot of stress, or you feel like you might be having a little bit of depression, or you kind of want to think that you might actually reach out. By the way, stigma and pride is the #1 reason people don't reach out. So working on stigma and helping people to understand mental health and how it works is a huge part of what we do. And so helping people understand that mental health isn't a diagnosable disease, but it's like managing your physical health, right? You manage how much you sleep and how much you eat so that you feel better. Mental health is the same thing. It's something that we just manage every day, how we're thinking and how we're feeling, and we're paying attention to how we're thinking and feeling, so that we can manage when it's not okay, how to be okay when it's not okay, right? So that's what mental health is. It's not a diagnosis. It's not like cancer where you get it and then you have a treatment plan and then you can be cured. It's just how we live our life. So how can we live our life and thrive as farmers and farm families so that we can have productive, resilient farms, productive, resilient families, and therefore productive, resilient rural communities where everybody benefits, right? So it's those strategies. And because of that, we've connected with the Alberta Family Institute, which is bringing the cutting edge neurology, deep science into Alberta. They have trained over 75,000 people. It's endorsed by AHS, and they're requiring a lot of their people to be trained with it. So we're going to make sure all of our therapists and all of our ag professionals, or as many of them as we can get, are trained in it. And it's about resiliency and how to work with people to evaluate what is stressing them out and what are the positive factors that are trying to make that teeter-totter level for them, and then what community supports you need. So if you have a lot of stressors, you might need a few more community supports in order to make the teeter-totter balance. And so we're taking a really positive resiliency. How can we make things better for real, not just talk about mental health and whine and cry about it, but actually do things that help people to live full and productive lives. So here's my question for you. In you thinking about your community and where you are and in Wheatland County, what are the resources and services that are available to support mental health in your area? If you were going to reach out, where would you go first?
Yeah, I
Maybe.
mean, we have small communities, so within those, there are counseling services. I think, speaking frankly, what I love about Agno is that is specific to agriculture, because depending on the life situation that you're going through, obviously, it's hard to relate with counselors or counseling. So that's where I think there's a huge added benefit to what Agno is doing.
Nice.
I was just going to suggest the county has FCSS in the office, and that might be a decent place for people to start.
Yeah, it's a great place to get a referral to other services for sure. They have lots of information about services available in the area. Anybody else?
At FCSS, I think they still publish it, that wheel of supports.
Oh, yeah.
I would like to see that out more because that's a really good resource.
For me, I guess I would go directly to my family doctor and probably get a referral somehow that way.
And that's actually the #1 way people in the rural area end up engaging with mental health. And there's some challenges with that. We can talk about those when we get to Ease Care. I'll tell you a story when we get there. Anything else?
I don't see anybody else.
Okay, we'll move on then. So what we find is to have a really good mental health support, we kind of think we need 3 different layers of support. We need the crisis response for your worst day. We need counseling for when you just need to, work something out and you're thinking about it and how do I strategize and how do I plan and how do I work through these problems? That's your counseling component. And then we need peer support because we are in rural areas and there's just, quite frankly, not enough of us around to support having those counseling services or people around you. But You need to be able to support your kids. You need to be able to support your spouse. You need to be able to support your neighbor. Just like in the video, right? Like being persistent, knowing how to approach them, what to say to them, that kind of stuff. So peer support is really important. Peer support is the #1 approach that farmers that have engaged with us want to see happen, whether it's depopulation, farm transition, farm family dynamic. It does not matter what the topic is. They want to know, how can I support my neighbor? And I think that peer support piece is really important for us to grow those resilient rural communities that lead to good economic development and keep our families and coming back and living with us. So these are the 3 things. What we need to know is AgNo's role in these 3. We promote counseling response, but we do not employ mental health people at AgNo. And so we have currently no crisis response, although I would really like to see a crisis liaison worker on the depopulation, and maybe someday that would be someone that is working with AgNo, or maybe it's somewhere in the public health system. I'm not sure what that looks like at this point. So maybe at some point we might have some crisis response pieces. We are doing crisis recovery though. So the Red Cross and ATB actually have asked us what we do for emergency response. And we went back to our therapist and said, like, we're not really in a position to respond instantly to someone in a crisis. But definitely they're willing to come in community and work with people after the event. So whether it's an ag accident, maybe it's a forest fire or a grass fire, or whatever it is, that we would come in after. So Red Cross would be the emergency response, Red Cross and the emergency response in the province. And then Red Cross wants to hand the situation over to AgNo for those farming incidents to go in afterwards and provide any supports that the community and the farmers would like to see. And so we've applied for some money to try and build that system, and our therapist network is really engaged and would like to see that system develop. So that's where we're playing in crisis response. For counseling, we've identified counselors who are living rural, who are from a farm, or are currently farming, or have a vast experience working with farmers. So we want people that really understand agriculture. There's other counselors out there that we'll talk about in a minute that don't have quite the same, but we really want some people that are really engaged in the industry and can be that extra support. So that's where we're playing in counseling. All of our therapists on our network, except the ones through the FCS SCA program, are actually private enterprises. And so we're supporting rural businesses as well. And what we find when we talk to those therapists, they fall into 2 categories. One is they're in the rural, and word of mouth have made them so busy that they don't want to engage with us because they're like, I can't take on any more clients. So that's the one we find. And the second one we find is one that has in the rural area or wants to move back home to the rural area, but doesn't know where they're going to generate their income. And so they're looking to promote themselves in the area and get established in a rural community. And so we're grabbing all those ones that we can and putting them on our network. Some of the ones on our network are really well established in the rural areas. They just believe in what we're doing and want to be available. So they've come on our therapist network. And then for peer support, we're looking for those training programs that work and meet the needs of Alberta farmers, and trying to bring them here and provide that training. And let's see if I can get this going here. Oh, shoot. The slide is not working properly. So an AgNo for crisis response, when you get to the top of our website on the far right, there's like get support. You click on that and you get those 3 levels of response. The one I wanted to talk about and highlight, I hope you guys have all heard about 988. It came out as a number across Canada and actually works in the United States as well. It's a suicide crisis line, but it can also be used in a debrief situation. So we encourage people all the time, if you are supporting somebody with suicidal ideation or that is struggling with suicide, you definitely want to debrief, because there can be a lot of trauma that's passed on if that person then goes ahead and dies by suicide. They can cause a lot of emotional trauma for yourself. So debriefing is really important, whether you do that with a friend or someone that you trust. If you don't know who to do it with, call 988 and tell those operators why you're calling, and they will walk you through it and talk you through what you just experienced and even give you some tips and tricks for the next time. If you are supporting somebody who is contemplating suicide, connecting them to 988 is awesome. Those people at the 988 line will talk them through how to get help, how to set that up, and then pass them off to our local resources and services. In Alberta, it's the 211 system, so the one in the north and the one in the south that are handling the calls from 988. So they really know what's going on in rural Alberta and in the province, and are a really excellent resource. So I just wanted to bring that up. So for us, we actually bumped this up to 4 free sessions because we have some money left over, and we're trying to keep it going. I'm not sure what's going to happen. Our grant is done at the end of April, and we're still trying to see if they'll just let us roll the free sessions over into the next year so that we can continuously offer these services. We only just started promoting them hardcore here in October, because our funding came in so late. So they haven't been open very long, and we haven't had a full year of promotion, pardon me, to really get an idea of what the baseline of support people are looking for. So if you want to write a letter to the minister and ask him that we can do that, that would be awesome. So the AgNose counseling response, you can go on you can check the profiles on our website. They talk about their experience with ag. You can pick the one that makes the most sense to you, and then you send them an email. They get an email from you, and then it's between you and them. Like we don't know anything about it. If you have any problems or any feedback that you want to share for us, then you can just email hello@agno.ca and let us know. So that's how it's set up. It's set up to be anonymous. We don't keep any records except how many free sessions we end up paying for. The therapist invoices us directly. There's no names on the invoices. They just say one farmer, first session, second session, third, fourth, that sort of thing. There's other places you can get help that might be a little bit more responsive. Ours are sole proprietors, and so they can only take on so many patients at a time. So if they're maxed out, it might be 2 or 3 weeks before you can get in. To get into somewhere that we're working with, Counseling Alberta is an awesome option. So the government has funded them to provide services, expand the counseling Calgary Counseling Center services to the rural areas. And some of them you can actually get in person in some communities. And that's like Lethbridge, Medicine Hat, Fort McMurray, Red Deer, Grand Prairie. I might have missed a couple, but those are the communities that they have in-person sessions. There's no wait times here. They have about 70 counselors that are working for them, and they have with varying experience, and they can handle really complex cases. Like this is a really good service. They can handle complex cases, and they bill on a sliding scale. So most people pay about $20 an hour. So Ease Care is another one. This is a virtual doctor's office. So it's like going to your local physician, but all of the physicians in Ease Care are dedicated to mental health, and they have psychiatrists in-house, and the psychiatrists are the ones that can prescribe medications. And so they have this group of physicians that understand mental health and are really up to date on the different therapeutic approaches to managing chronic stress, depression, anxiety, and these kinds of things. So our feedback from people I know in public health is often the local doctor will prescribe antidepressants that actually are not appropriate, either dosage wise or for the situation, without consulting a psychiatrist. And there's so many advances happening all the time on those medications. It's really important to get a psychiatrist's input into what's going on. So if this makes it so you don't have to ask your doctor for a referral to a psychiatrist. You can just get the referral yourself. Go straight to Ease Care, find a psychiatrist, and work with them. They do everything over virtually, and there are some sites where you can go in person, but I think they're just in Edmonton or Calgary. And so it's all covered by Alberta Healthcare. So it's another option. I know people that are doing long-term counseling with psychiatrists through Ease Care, and they found that it's like they're doing the long-term, going back once a month for 6 months or whatever. So they can do that. The difference between a psychiatrist and a psychologist is the psychologist is really about habits and how you're thinking and that sort of thing. And the psychiatrist has a bit of that with the ability to prescribe medication. So, but they're both dedicated to mental health treatment. Okay, do we have time to ask one more question, or should I skip this question?
I think we can go ahead. Sure.
Okay, so what do you think are the barriers to seeking help in your experience and in your community?
I think you mentioned already stigma being a huge one. And then, I mean, you shared some low-cost help, which is awesome. But I'm curious if in your feedback you've heard a barrier to entry being cost or ongoing costs. I'm not sure. Or, it might even be perceived. They may not know or understand that there is more affordable counseling, so they assume it's going to be costly and they don't bother jumping in.
Yeah, cost is a huge barrier. Those private practitioners and psychologists are anywhere. Well, some of them have not gone for their last designation, so they are counseling, but not psychologists, even though they have the same qualifications. We've pulled a few of those onto our website too. Everybody on our website has a master's degree and carries 5 million liability. And is certified by a governing body that's recognized in Alberta. And all of them will be under a college soon. So it's the ones that aren't under a college yet, the province is creating a college, and they will be under a college as well. So you'll have that protection for the public that you get with professions, with every single counselor that's on our list. And so the ones that aren't in the College of Psychologists are anywhere from about 170-ish, around there, 150 to 170. When you get into the College of Psychologists, it goes up from 200 to 250 per hour. So it can be quite expensive. The other thing that we find is that scheduling, I'm going to put this down. And I was hoping you guys would come up with schedulings, because scheduling is really tricky. It can be up to 3 weeks, and I don't know what's happening in 3 weeks. If my trough is frozen, I'm not going to come. If it's -40 and I'm doing having to baby my animals, I'm not going to make it to the appointment. And there are fees. Like if you don't make it, most psychologists, you have to commit. There's a deposit, and you lose the deposit if you don't make it. And so that flexibility around an agriculture annual schedule is a tricky thing for finding a psychologist. And so the ones on our network understand that, and they're more flexible. They are more forgiving when you don't make appointments. We've talked to them about having that initial conversation with people and make sure they're comfortable before they come, and how to be flexible. So that is another barrier. Any other ones you can think of? Good. It's a huge deal for us, and with hopefully a successful grant application, we'll be really promoting very hard those options for rural access through Counseling Alberta and Ease Care. And I hope we can continue with our free session program. We want to expand our free session program to also include free sessions with some of like the farm transition specialists as well, and some of the programs. So we've identified a program, it's called I forget what it's called now. It's with Mona Cooley anyway, and it's a 10-week program, one evening a week for 10 weeks. And it's for families who are supporting and have a member that has been with a diagnosable mental health condition like schizophrenia or bipolar or some of those kind of bigger issues. And they want to live their best life as a family. How do we thrive under these circumstances? And she walks you through a process to sort that out as a family and come up with a strategy on how you can live your best life. It's a beautiful program, but it costs money. So we'd like to expand our free session program to sponsor people to try some of these programs and get the help they need when they need it. So for our peer support, one of the things that we did do, and I'm telling you as council, because I'm hoping that you will book with us, we have 2 suicide prevention trainings. These are trainings, what we found was like Living Works and the Center for Suicide Prevention has training for industry to get people supporting each other and understanding suicide in the workplace and how to support people in their communities and that sort of thing. But we find that there's very few agriculture industry people that are engaged in those courses. So these are designed to be precursors to try and overcome some of the stigma and the fear. What we find too is that like there's a lot of people dying by suicide right now. When we give these kinds of talks, there's a lot of people that tear up. And they come up to you afterwards and they talk about it. There is a lot. There's one stat that I just read from the Resource Center for Suicide Prevention annual report. That's the one in Grand Prairie. The leading cause of death, and I forget the young age, is like 15 to 30, something like that. So young people, leading cause of death right now is suicide. And so these are very serious matters and they're really impacting our rural communities. So what can we do to try and increase the capacity for people, not only to get the support they need, but to support themselves and their neighbors through some of this? So this is the 2 programs that we have. The level 1 is the Intro to Suicide Prevention. And we were piloting it with a group of people that are now our facilitators in the province, and they helped us with the development. And one of them was a voice, an actor, an amateur actor, and so she got her group to record all of the scenarios for us and put it in there. So it was just a huge benefit to the program, and it just shows how much heart people have for this topic. So this is the kind of stuff. So we're going to do this one. There's a mental health like an introduction to mental health that CMHA has been running and piloting, and they're starting to expand their facilitators, and they've agreed to work with us to customize it for agriculture and so that we can deliver it. And we're applying under this new grant for a coordinator specifically to get this up and running and to get these scheduled and to work with our group of facilitators and get more people trained and understanding mental health. And education is the biggest or the best or the most useful strategy for overcoming stigma. So we want to get some tailor-made for agriculture in Alberta, good quality programming ready, and then promote it and get that adopted in the province. So there's a few other things if you want to give us a hand that doesn't cost any money. One of them is our farm transition survey. So all of the farm transition surveys that we've been reading, they all say the #1 barrier is farm family dynamics, but they don't really dig into what farm family dynamics means. And so when we talk to our therapists and say it's farm family dynamics, they're like, so what, communication, gender differences, generational issues, like what is it exactly? So ours dives a little bit deeper, and it's setting us up to have some good conversations with our working group on farm transition. So if you know anybody that's going through farm transition, has gone through farm transition, or is a professional that is supporting people through farm transition, we want to hear from you guys. So you can scan the barcode and go, or you can go straight to our website, agno.ca, and that's right in the menu is where you can link into those to the survey. So as many as we can get, that would be fantastic. These are some of our current partners. Everybody's dipping their toe. We have to actually, in this next grant, we have to come up with 40% matching, which is going to be just around $200,000. And so we're looking for corporate sponsorship, any kind of sponsor that we can get to keep this progress going. And I'm actually also engaging with the ministry at the ADM level, asking for us to be treated special, maybe knocking that down to 20% matching because there is such a huge public benefit. It's really hard to justify such a small not-for-profit group as Erica having to foot the bill for 40% of the cost of delivering free sessions for farmers. So we're in negotiation, but they probably won't be able to negotiate that until the next grant cycle, like May or June or the summer. So yeah, so these are the ones that are delving in right now. We also started a crowdfunding campaign, and the provincial government matches the first $2,000 dollar for dollar. So your $1 contribution becomes $2. And the funding campaign only just started. We've advertised it through our social media and our newsletter, and I hope to get it out in the next Agri News and a few more places as we move forward. So it's another way people can contribute. And that's all I have for you. So you can visit us at our website, agno.ca. There's a barcode to go there. And then we are currently funded under the Sustainable Canadian Agriculture Partnership under the Public Trust. Is there any questions or further information I can help you with?
Any questions for Linda? George.
Hi, Linda. I'm just making some notes here, and what I'm getting is you would like us to advertise a couple of your surveys, your transition survey and donation advertisement.
Yeah, and they were in my last newsletter, but I can send it directly to you, George, if you like.
Sure, I think I have it, but
Okay.
Yep. Okay, great, thanks.
Could we get a copy of your slide deck as well, Linda?
Absolutely. I mashed this together this morning, so I will unmash it and send it to you.
Sure, if you send it to George, he can distribute it to
Okay.
all of us. That would be lovely.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much, Linda. Your presentation was awesome. You're doing really critical work for the ag industry. We appreciate all that you're doing. I guess I have a question about your grant. If you were not to get one, which I would be shocked and dismayed about,
Yeah.
so you would not be able to offer free services, but you would still, your services would still be available.
Actually, no. If we
No.
don't get the next grant, we're done. I've been looking for, it's hard, right? Because we got our grant. This is developing, right? So we get the first grant, we had to spend it in a short amount of time, so it was really intense. And then we had this election that happened. And so we actually were approved for the grant. We didn't hear that we were approved until summer, and then we didn't actually get the money until October. So we've been cramming the 1 year's worth of work into, and I lived on my CEBA loan is how I did manage to make that happen. And so now going into the next one, they've offered for us to put in a 4-year grant. And I'm getting it together and we're submitting it. So I think it's pretty likely that it will be successful. There is some uncertainty. Part of it is the 40% matching if we get a grant for the amount of people that we need. So this is the other thing that's happened. In Ontario and BC and across the country, people are responding to the farm mental health, and they put that as a priority under public trust in the SCAP. So it's across the country that people are moving with this. In the other provinces, mental health and agriculture have gone together to fund the initiatives that they have. In Alberta, because of the reorganization of mental health, that has not been a conversation that we can do at the moment. So we're going into this with just a not-for-profit group. That's a very small not-for-profit group, applying for money under SCAP to deliver something that's quite large. So in Ontario, they have 3 full-time hard money, not soft money, people that all they do is promote those programs to farmers and get the training and schedule the training. So like Alberta has almost as many farmers as Ontario. So we take away maybe one of those people, that's 2 full-time people. We're able to apply for 1. I'm not going to be able to afford 2, I don't think. So we're going to apply for 1, and then the rest of us kind of have to help out, right? They have facilitators that are on hard money. Their CMHA is set up so that they have facilitators across the province, so they don't have to drive. Like if I have a facilitator, somebody that wants a program in the Peace, they have to drive. My closest one is just outside of St. Albert. And so they're driving a long time, right? So it's like $1,000 or more to do an event in the piece unless it's virtual. And a lot of those conversations around suicide and stuff, you don't want to do those virtually if you can help it. If you can do it in person with support there, because you're connecting them to local supports. And the people that are open to those trainings are ones that have had somebody pass in their community. And so they're really raw. And so you're going into those, it's not really a good virtual situation. And so like there's those capacity issues. Like Alberta's a huge province. When I talk to the people in Ontario, they have no idea about having to go 9 hours north or 5 hours south to cover the whole province. Most of their farming all happens in a really close area, and they have mental health infrastructure already in place. So there's things like that. Like we want to offer the same level of service that they are in other parts of the province, but we just have these unique Alberta challenges to making that happen. And I think I'm very positive that those things are going to work out because the attitude and the willingness is there. It's just a matter of pulling the pieces together. And man, the landscape is just like, it's sand, it's moving all the time. And so we have to be kind of reactive. So it's been a challenge. But it's not an insurmountable challenge. And so some of these outside sources of income kind of help stabilize things while this government stuff is sorting itself out. So I don't know if that helps. Like I don't want to, I think everybody has their heart in the right place and is trying to do the right thing. It's just a matter of timing and opportunity. So.
Right. That's sort of troubling that grant cycles work like that. It's a difficult way to get a program running, and especially with not receiving money until October, and now it's April, and you're having to reapply.
Report on it and reapply.
And prove that it's working. Yeah, that's
yeah, it's tricky. It's so
crazy.
tricky.
If we can help in any way, like we would be absolutely, I'm sure, I don't want to speak on behalf of the board, but I anticipate that we would help in any way we could to encourage approval of your grant and advocating for more of like a 4-year cycle rather than piecemeal.
Yeah.
That would make things a lot easier for you to manage your business. And so if we can help in any way, please let us know.
If you would like to write a letter of support for what we're doing, and in that letter of support the 4 years of funding, the pieces of what I talked to you about that really resonated with you that you want to see developed. And then if you can even put in there that it could be like 20% matching instead of 40%, or reduce the matching requirement to make it sustainable for a not-for-profit, that would be fantastic. What my approach has been so far is to try to find those places like Counseling Alberta and CMHA and work with them to build capacity to deliver this on a longer term basis. Because like it's just the sustainable agriculture program is about innovation and about doing things. And then I always have to come up with what's the new part. I can't just carry on maintenance. Like it's not a maintaining grant. It's a development and get something started grant. So we have to be always thinking about, okay, at the end of this 4-year grant, we're going to have this infrastructure of mental health people and some training and some facilitators. How do we keep that going past 4 years? If it's useful, and I think it will be. So how do we keep that going past 4 years? And so I'm trying to make those partnerships with places like CMHA and Counseling Alberta, because I can't see currently under our funding structure, unless we can activate some of this other funding, how we can go past those 4 years with the current grants that we're using. So see, the challenge is like for not like first responders, like in Alberta, and I agree with this, the policy is we don't do mental health by occupation, we do mental health for all Albertans. And I agree with that. As a taxpayer, I think that's great. We should be for all services for all people. But if you notice, you have special services for nurses or for first responders or whatever. Well, those are their professional organization collects fees from their members to do the matching part, and then they apply for grants in the government to do something specific to that industry. And so that's how it's set up. But in agriculture, we don't have that kind of structure where I get those membership dollars to put towards the matching. In Ontario, they do, because they require every single farmer to be part of an agriculture organization, whether it be your commodity one, so it could be like dairy or whatever. And if not, then you have to be part of the Agriculture Federation, which in Alberta, there's not a lot of Alberta farmers that are really engaged with the Agriculture Federation. So this is the challenge that we have here, is where does that matching come to keep a program like this? And it's the advocacy, making sure that the needs of the community are being communicated through those mental health supports that are there, that have that long-term funding. That's something that should happen, I think, forever. And like addressing the current needs of what's going on in the industry. And so there is a challenge there that we have to kind of sort out. We have to figure out how to keep something like this, that it has a benefit to our rural communities and our farmers and our rural economic development. How do we keep something like this going in perpetuity? Because after 4 years, then what?
Exactly. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
Well, thank you
Thanks for
very
your
much.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we appreciate your time. Thank you very much for coming or presenting, and we will be in touch.
Sounds good. I will send those slides to George as soon as I get them together for you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
All right.
All
Have a
right,
good
have a
rest of
great
your
day.
day.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Okay. That was a great presentation. Do we want to contemplate a motion to direct administration to perhaps write a letter of support for Agno with some of the criteria that she had outlined? Is there an appetite for that?
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Sorry. Did you want to? Doesn't matter.
I was going to make the motion,
You-
and put my hand up. but
Okay.
Apparently that doesn't matter.
No, I'm recognizing you.
Yeah, I know. So I'll make that motion that we direct administration to write a letter of support to the Alberta government for Agno. And just use the stuff that she outlined in it, George.
Exactly.
I'll leave it to him to figure out what that looks like.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Any discussion on that? All in favor? That's carried. Fantastic. Thank you, everybody. Should we take a 10-minute recess?
Yes, please.
And then we'll be back at 10:25. Okay, I'll call this meeting back to order. Our next agenda item is 2.3.1, Agriculture Disaster Declaration, Delegation of Authority within the Wheatland Ag Service Board bylaw. George.
Good afternoon. Through the chair, I will give us the background of this. Wheatland County Council and the Agricultural Service Board recognize the challenges of agricultural producers may face during certain years of very poor growing conditions. The ASB and Council can help bring a more broad awareness to these challenges through the local declaration of an agricultural disaster. On July 4th, 2023, at the regular council meeting, council delegated the final decision for declaring an agricultural disaster for the 2023 growing season to the ASB. On July 5th, 2023, the ASB passed a motion to make the declaration. In recent years, Wheatland County Council has requested by resolution that the Ag Service Board deliberate and make the final recommendation or decision about declaring an agricultural disaster within the county. In recent history, Council has typically sought the opinion of or delegated the authority to the Ag Service Board when deliberating if the county should declare an agricultural disaster within a given year. By amending the ASB bylaw, Council may streamline this process by allowing the ASB ongoing authority to declare agricultural disasters within the county. The recommendation to delegate this authority to the ASB is being made under the premise of streamlining the associated administrative processes. Delegation of this authority does not preclude the ability of Council to make the decision to declare an agricultural disaster should Council wish to do so. I've included some background legislation from the Municipal Government Act, the Alberta Emergency Act, and the Alberta Agricultural Service Board Act. I will skip over reading that and continue on to, so during the during the Ag Service Board meeting held on October 4th, 2023, the following resolution was passed. That the board direct administration to draft a revision to bylaw 2019-19, adding a clause to delegate the authority to the Agricultural Service Board to declare an agricultural disasters within Wheatland County and bring the draft of the revised bylaw back to the board for consideration to submit the recommended bylaw revision to council. So under the next section, under section 8 of Wheatland County's ASB bylaw, the following statement could be added to delegate the authority to declare an agricultural disaster. This would be point G under section 8. Unless previously declared by Wheatland County Council within a present growing season, have the authority to declare an agricultural disaster within Wheatland County if conditions warrant such a declaration based on data obtained from reliable sources and using a generally recognized agricultural condition assessment tool. An Ag Service Board meeting is typically held in early July of every year, and by that time in the growing season, an assessment of crop conditions can be observed to determine if the conditions are favorable or not. Using information provided by board members, administration, crop reports, and the moisture situation updates, the ASB would typically at that time have the information needed to make the determination whether to declare an agricultural disaster for the current growing season. If during the growing season council and ASB wish to deliberate making an agricultural disaster declaration, pardon me, and a regular council meeting or ASB meeting was not scheduled, example during the break, a special meeting may need to be called for the Ag Service Board or council. Historically, in Wheatland County, once a declaration of an agricultural disaster has been made, a letter from the office of the Reeve is drafted by administration, signed by the Reeve, and sent to the following recipients: GOA, Minister of Ag, Minister of Forestry, AFSC, Rural Municipalities, President, Wheatland County Council and the Ag Service Board, the Provincial Ag Service Board Committee, and various MPs and MLAs in the immediate area. If the agricultural disaster were declared by the ASB, the letter could alternatively be signed by the chair of the Ag Service Board and sent to the pertinent contacts listed above. Municipal agricultural disaster declarations bring an awareness to an issue of the specific area of the province, but they do not trigger a provincial declaration or access to any funding to support the issue. Municipalities can work with their local agricultural industries or industry producer organizations to communicate concerns and assess challenges being experienced. The potential bylaw addition may help streamline the efficiency and disaster declaration process without a resolution from council to delegate the authority to the Ag Service Board. Council will still maintain the ability to make the disaster declaration if desired. Administration will continue to monitor and record growing conditions so that the most up-to-date information can be presented to the Ag Service Board meeting in July. And I am here for any questions if anybody has any. Thank you.
Board's wishes? Or discussion? Member Bigger?
I'll move the recommendation. Did you want it read? I'll move that the board directs the agricultural fieldman to present a report to Wheatland County Council regarding the proposed addition to bylaw 2019-29 and include the report, the recommendation from the board that council approve the proposed bylaw addition delegating authority to the Agriculture Service Board to declare agriculture disasters within Wheatland County.
Thanks, Member Bigger. Any discussion on that? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Great job, George. Next on our agenda is the ASB Summer Tour.
Good morning again, George from administration here. So I will talk about the ASB Summer Tour. This was submitted on behalf of board member Jason Wilson. He had asked us to put in a portion here, so I'll go through the background here. So the following text and attached documents provide some brief background information regarding to the ASB Summer Tour, which are historically held in Alberta. This information is provided to help facilitate the board's discussion regarding the subject matter. The ASB Summer Tours aim to educate participants about advancements in agriculture, showcase local farmers, and foster collaboration within the agricultural community. The tours are usually 2 to 3 full days of chartered buses touring 300 to 400 delegates plus around the hosting region or regions. with a banquet held on the last day of the tour. In 2019, Wheatland County's ASB was planning on hosting the summer tour in 2022, but the tour was canceled. At the time, the expected costs of the tour were approximately $175,000, and the original projected costs and revenues document for this previously planned Wheatland County hosted ASB tour is attached to this report. The County of Grand Prairie's Provincial Ag Service Board Summer Tours cost summary is also attached for information. According to the AAAF policy handbook about the ASB summer tours, there were only a few items in there regarding it, and it said that the AAAF shall only act as a booking agent for the tours. The tours shall be held in July, and tours may be hosted by more than one municipality, and funding shall be the responsibility of the hosting partner or partners. And that's all I have for the background. Thanks.
All right, so Member Wilson had expressed interest in hosting an ASB tour. Because of our, George and I had sort of talked about this briefly, because of our election cycle, really it would have to be held next summer, 2025, before our, well, it doesn't have to be, I guess, but given the people on the board support for it, or if we have support for it, those people would want to be involved with it. It would, so we don't have a lot of time to start planning. We would have to kind of decide shortly and get on it. I think, George, what kind of time would you look for planning?
Ideally, 25 is a little soon. I hesitate at that. 26 may be a little more palatable, but again, like you say, council's wishes are Ag Service Board's wishes. And from the colleagues I've been in discussion with regarding this endeavor, it is a very large endeavor, and just coming off the Provincial Ag Service Board committee planning group on that, I know what we're in for, and it is an absolutely huge job. I know we would nail it, though.
So budget-wise, if it would cost us, sorry, around 175, maybe we should say 200 or more. We won't know until we cost it out, but where would that money come from? We would have to ask council at their next budget cycle for additional funds, I guess.
And in addition to that, we would, of course, sleuth out some sponsorship opportunities, right? We're pretty good at that, too.
Would there be an opportunity to host with another county, with Rocky View or something that would maybe?
That's a good idea.
That's a really good idea. Mm-hmm. Member Larson?
I might suggest Newell rather than Rocky View, just because there's more agriculture in Newell, and we could tour some of the, both counties quite easily and hit large agriculture areas where if we go west, agriculture gets less and less. And if we're really about touring farms, that's probably the way to do it.
Newell has some interesting places to tour as well, like the JBS meet. Member Link?
Yeah, I like the idea of Newell County, or Nehill has a lot of sort of agritourism opportunities that may be interesting too, and also strong, more traditional agriculture. Maybe it might be prudent, just for fairness, even to send a letter to all of our contiguous municipalities and just see if there's any interest. We'd have to watch, but if it was sort of based in Wheatland and then we just did sort of a spoke out if there were certain opportunities, it could even be, 5 rural municipalities partnering and just showcase something in each municipality, or there might be a way to structure it, and then that would spread that financial burden out as well if there was a willingness to share in the potential deficit for the event.
Member Greer?
Have we ever done this before, and or is there any feedback from from municipalities that have done it that it's contributed to economics or any other value of the tour? Out of curiosity.
George here. Anecdotally, I haven't come across any like hard science background for that kind of effects after the tour. I have talked to a lot of the other municipalities about this tour, and again, just reiterating that it's a big event for the county. I would be happy to reach out to previous tour hosting regions and try and get some more information.
If not us, who's doing it in 24, like 25? Is it already pre-booked? No, okay.
Member
So
Reichert.
is there some way we know we can't do it in 25, there's just too much work. I mean, I think we could do it in the county itself because we've got a lot to showcase in this county if we were able to do it. Is there some way we can have a sort of a drop dead date? Like, that way we're not saddling, it could, somebody could just decide that this is not a good idea, but can you do, like, is there some way we can set this together so that we can start putting steps together and say, okay, at this point, that's when we have to know or go, and that is, so pre-planning, I guess, is basically what it is. Is there some way you can sort of pre-plan, start putting feelers out and not committing to 2026, because of the way COVID was, everything was going tickety-boo until COVID hit, and then there's 3 years in a row that everybody just ducked and covered. So I'm just wondering if we can somehow figure out a way to do some pre-planning so that we can sort of figure out, because I'm with you that we've got potential for great sponsors. This thing might not cost us that much money, and whatever it does cost you, I think just the spotlight you shine on the county is well worth it. Like we're one of the, you go to RMA and we're a hot commodity. So, and I think that would fit into that.
I think that if I bring back some information to the July ASB meeting, would that with some targeted dates moving forward at that point, and we could be in contact, Shannon, about some milestone dates, and just kind of come up with a preliminary plan for potentially hosting in 26. I definitely would like to get collaborative letters out to partners if that's the way we wish to go as well. Try and give our partners as much notice as possible. But yeah, we could definitely dig in and bring back a timeline and some information to the July meeting.
Member Kester.
Newell had a tour not that many years ago, one of the more recent ones. You can ask them on their experience. Just share with another municipality. Wheatland County is a pretty big municipality. You don't want to be driving all the way across Wheatland into Newell. And then Newell's a big county. You're on the bus all day long. I would think Wheatland County has enough to offer. The logistics of it, you have to have a facility big enough to feed them all. And the ice surface of an arena is barely big enough. I've seen them where people just did not fit inside the ice surface of an arena. So there's not that many facilities in the county that can do that. I don't know if you want to partner up with Strathmore, say, and the Civic Center or their arenas. There have been some and relied on an arena. Depends how many people come. This will be the first ag tour in a while. I would expect it to be well attended. So if you can, I would say you would have to find out, partner with a location that would have camping, hotels, because you're looking at 300 to 500 delegates. It's yeah, it's quite an economic boom for the place, but just some of my observations as the years went on.
Okay, this is awesome feedback. Sounds like 2025 is out of the question. Let's shoot for 2026. And if, administration can provide sort of a timeline of, get some feelers out there and then, and some timelines about, when we'd have to make a final decision and push the button to go. Okay.
I think one of the important things you'd be really looking for is how many buses you need and who has the capability of, because middle of July in southern Alberta with the stampede on is, yeah.
I can buy my electric bus now.
Does administration have enough information to go ahead and then come back with some more information?
Yes, I think if we made it just like a resolution for administration to bring back a timeline and a letter to see if adjacent municipalities are interested in collaborating, is that?
Yep.
Okay.
Do you want to make a motion?
Before we do, I've heard kind of mixed perspectives on whether or not we would partner with another municipality. I think initially it would be understanding timelines, costs, which you've included, maybe some idea around the sponsorship, and then drop dead date of when the decision would need to be made. Focusing on Wheatland County. I think if at that point there's further concern about budget, then we would look maybe at another county being involved. So I think that's what I heard, at least from some others.
Yep, sounds good. Mm-hmm. All right, would somebody make a motion to direct administration?
Yeah, so I can make a motion to direct administration to review the ASB summer tour for 2026, providing timelines and drop dead dates of when a proposal will be required in budgeting.
Thank you, Member Greer. Any more discussion? Call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Excellent. All right, next on our agenda. Next on our agenda is the 2.3.3 donations to nonprofit organizations. George.
George here from administration again. I'll go through the background here. So donations are given to nonprofit organizations to help them operate effective, viable, proactive programs and services that benefit people in Wheatland County. The following describes the function and mandate of organizations from which the county has received a donation request thus far in the 2024 fiscal year. Funding request letters from Foothills Forage and Grazing Association, the Alberta Invasive Species Council, and the Heartland Training and Support Hub, formerly known as the Farm Safety Center, have been attached to this report. Funding requests from the Bow River Basin Council and Red Deer River Watershed Alliance are expected to arrive in the fall, and so are likely to be presented to the board at the October 2nd, 2024 ASB meeting. The Foothills Forage and Grazing Association donation request is $5,000. The association is a nonprofit producer-driven group that addresses issues, ideas, and innovations for forage and livestock producers in South Central Alberta. The board of directors is currently made up of 11 volunteer forage producers from across the FFGA region, and they bring producers together by finding profitable and regenerative ways to produce forage and livestock. We work with government and industry to keep producers up to date with innovations in the industry, which FFGA then applies at a grassroots level in cooperation with producers. The FFGA strives to bring practical information and production strategies to producers by hosting demonstration projects, events, and workshops, hands-on days, as well as networking with like-minded producers and sharing information through our monthly newsletters and social media. Administration received a donation request from the FFGA Association in the fall of 23 for their 24 funding needs. The requested donation amount for 2024 is $5,000, and the funding letter is attached to this report. The Alberta Invasive Species Council has a donation request for $2,000. That's in line with our previous donations. They're a not-for-profit society dedicated to informing and educating Albertans about the destructive impacts of invasive species have on our environment, economy, and society. We endeavor to foster partnerships with jurisdictions, agencies, and groups to develop integrated collaboration, long-term management programs, and to engage and empower people to take action against invasive species in Alberta. Administration received a donation request from the AISC late November of 23 for the funding support of their 2024 funding needs. Historically, Wheatland has donated $2,000 per year to the group, and the funding letter is attached to this report as well. And the last one here is the Heartland Training and Support Hub, formerly known as the Farm Safety Center. They've evolved into the Heartland Training and Support Hub, expanding our mission to foster safer, healthier, and more inclusive rural communities across Canada. Our rebranding reflects our broader commitment to not only continue our legacy of farm safety education, but also to address the comprehensive needs of rural health, well-being, and successful integration of newcomers into these vibrant communities. We envision a future where every individual in rural Canada has the knowledge, resources, and support to live safely, healthily, and with a sense of belonging. Through our innovative programs, the New Roots Initiative, Rural Health Initiative, Safety Smarts, and Sustainable Farm Families, we aim to turn this vision into a reality. Administration received a donation request earlier this year from the Center for their support of their 24 funding needs. Historically, Wheatland County has donated $5,000 per year, and the Heartland Training Support Hub funding letter request is attached to this report. And I'd just like to point out that in their funding request letter was for about $7,191. They also are running, if we pay through their portal, which they've, pardon me, they have a portal which the government matches 30% of their funding, and it's included in their letter attached to the report. And so if we were to go ahead and do the donation of the 5,000 through that portal, it would actually be 6,500. So we did that last year with this. So something to consider for the board, and I'm available with any questions. Thanks.
Maybe an observation, sorry, Member Greer. Heartland Institute specifically, I believe similar to what Agno had said about the matching, it was with a certain timeline, and I think it had to have been done 4 days ago or end of March. So we may have missed that window specific to them.
They've actually extended their deadline unofficially. I should have mentioned that. Apologies.
Good to know. Any member link?
Just a question. The recommendation is for 5,000, and that was last year's donation, but you were suggesting that we could meet their donation request of 7,100 with a $6,500 donation. Are you recommending, is there a rationale for your recommendation of continuing with last year's donation for Heartland?
The only reason I had put in the 5,000 from last year is just because the budget had been passed. If the board so wished to match the $7,191, that would fit within ASB's budget.
Sure.
Sorry, given the presentation we saw this morning, if we were to want, or if we did have room, I think I saw 29K budgeted. I don't know how much room is within that. I think I would rather consider $2,000 match to Agno with the opportunity there. Thoughts from others?
That's a great suggestion. Anybody else have an idea on that? Member Larson expresses approval. Member Link?
I was thinking the same thing during the presentation. It would be great if we have room. I wouldn't mind advice from administration just on if you have future plans and more detail on where we're at in that budget and sort of what the intentions are, but I would fully support a donation to Agno.
George?
We could support that $2,000 donation to Agno in the budget cycle this year. Yeah.
Would we be able to amend then the recommendation to include 2,000 for Agno, moving forward with 5,000 for Heartland, given that they are going to get a match to the government close to the total amount. So it would be amended to, sorry, that would be the amendment.
Are you making that motion?
Yeah, making the motion with the amended 5,000, leaving 5,000 for Heartland, including 2,000 for Agno.
Very good. So you're actually moving 5,000 to Foothills Forage and Grazing, 2,000 to Alberta Invasive Species Council, 5,000 to Heartland, and 2,000 to Agno. Is that correct? So that'll be a total of $14,000 from our budget.
Correct.
Member Larson?
Yeah, we just have to amend that front part where it says a donation to a total of 12 would have to get increased to 14,000.
Okay, so is everybody familiar with the amendment, or is it coming up on the, it's coming up on the screen, so here. This is the motion as it stands. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much, everybody. I love the support for Agno. It's important. Okay, we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is proposed Women in Agriculture Award.
George here from administration again, talking about the background to the Women in Agriculture Award here. So during the January 10th, 2024 Agricultural Service Board meeting, the board passed the following resolution: that the board direct administration to bring back parameters and requirements in regard to a Women in Agriculture Award in Wheatland County to the April 2024 ASB meeting. The Wheatland County Ag Service Board offers various awards aimed at recognizing individuals in the community for their commitment to agriculture and environment stewardship and leadership. 3 award programs are currently offered by the ASB are the Community Stewardship Awards, the Youth Stewardship Award, and the J. Laszlo Award. The Community Stewardship Award is the Environmental Stewardship Award recognizing Wheatland County community member or group that has made an outstanding contribution to the environmental sustainability in the municipality. The Youth Stewardship Award was developed to recognize the importance of engaging youth in environmental stewardship initiatives, as the youth of today represent the future generations of the Wheatland County community. The J. Laszlo Legacy Award is awarded to an agricultural producer in Wheatland County that has shown exemplary leadership in the implementation of beneficial management practices on their farm. The addition of a Women in Agriculture Award could help recognize the important presence of women in the dynamic agricultural industry. These inspiring women drive sustainable food production and contribute significantly to the agricultural industry worldwide. Similar to this proposed Women in Agriculture Award, there are other awards found globally that recognize and celebrate women's contributions to agriculture. For instance, the International Women in Agribusiness Award, which is jointly presented by the Women in Ag magazine. Additionally, the German Agricultural Society, organizer of the Agrotechnica trade fair, pays tribute to women who shape the future of agriculture as managers, researchers, educators, journalists, bloggers, and influencers. These awards serve as a platform to tell stories behind these remarkable women, encouraging more women to participate in the agriculture and agribusiness and fostering a supportive and inclusive environment within the sector. A Women in Agriculture Award would in part be intended to bring more inclusivity to women in agriculture and showcase women's efforts making positive impact in agriculture and to help preserve, nurture, and transform the industry for the betterment of society. Each of the environmental stewardship and agricultural leadership awards that Wheatland County currently distributes have a monetary value of $250. If the board chooses to add a Women in Agriculture Award to the ASB programs, administration recommends using the same $250 monetary award. Adding this award and the associated recommended monetary budget can be accommodated within the existing Ag Service Board administrative resources and within the current 2024 budget. This award can be administered similarly to the Wheatland County Bursary and Environmental Stewardship Awards. Award nominations will be submitted by the public, reviewed for eligibility by administration, and then reviewed by the Bursary and Awards Committee to recommend a final award recipient to the board. The ASB currently does not have a policy in place outlining the parameters and requirements for administering the awards. The ASB also currently does not have in place the terms of reference document specifying purpose, functions, and operating procedures of the ASB Bursary and Awards Committee. Conclusion and recommendations: women make many meaningful contributions to the agriculture industry and should be recognized for their efforts. The ASB has asked administration to bring forward this report regarding a potential addition to Women in Agriculture Award to recognize the contributions made by women in the local agricultural community. Because there currently is not an ASB policy in place outlining the parameters and requirements of the existing community awards offered by the ASB, administration is recommending that a policy be developed, including the proposed Women in Agriculture Award. In addition, because of the Bursary and Awards Committee currently does not have a terms of reference in place, administration is recommending a terms of reference be developed. That is the background and available for any questions. Thanks.
Great, thank you very much. Discussion?
I think it's a good idea, but anybody that's done any farming knows that it's actually the women that do all the work anyhow. So probably this is a long time coming. So yeah, no, I fully support this. There's so many people, so many women out there that should have the spotlight shone on them. So
George?
One thing, this is a draft document we've included, so there will be some revisions regarding the FOIP stuff on this document, but it should not change the scope of the award. I just want to put that out there.
We had talked previously that they didn't want a monetary amount attached to it. I understand, like, to me, if all of our other awards come with, and it's just that's a dinner out, really. You know, it's not a huge dollar amount. It just is to me, a token of appreciation, I guess, or that kind of thing. So I don't know how the rest of the board feels though about that. Any comments on that?
I agree with Member Eicher. Great job to administration for putting this together. And I agree to the point that it would be odd to leave it out of the matching amount, and that it's not a significant amount. It's part of the recognition, I think.
Any other thoughts, or are we support this idea?
So does the deadline match the other awards that would be presented? What is the other deadline?
We try to have those in by December 31st, so we can bring them to the January ASB meeting.
Okay.
So yes, we would put it in line with all the other awards.
Thanks.
All right, board's wishes. Will anybody make a motion? There's some recommendations on the screen. Member Larson.
I'll move that the board direct administration to create a draft of an agriculture and environment awards policy. This policy should outline the parameters and requirements for the Community Stewardship Award, the Youth Stewardship Award, the J. Laszlo Legacy Award, and a new Women in Agriculture Award. Furthermore, it should be presented for the board's consideration at a future ASB meeting.
Thank you, Member Larson. Any discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Member Bigger.
I'll move that the board direct administration to create a draft terms of reference for the ASB Bursary and Awards Committee and present it for the board's consideration at a future ASB meeting.
Thank you, Member Bigger. Any other discussion? Call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is my report. I think most of you were in attendance at our January meeting, so not much to review. I'll point out again that Craig and Celeste Christensen were chosen as Wheatland County's Farm Family nominee for the BMO Award for 2024. We saw a presentation from our administration team on on shelter belts at the Carsland Lagoon, Rosebud, Oxbow, and our county site here, which was exciting to hear about. I'm sure they're hard at work on getting that sort of started. We had our ASB provincial conference in Lethbridge, and just huge thanks to George and the rest of the fieldmen on the team that planned and executed that conference. It was excellent. The location was great. That conference center is amazing. And the presentations there were excellent. So kudos to the team on that. Thank you, George. I attended a couple of Alice National virtual conventions. They had it over 3 days. The dates on my report, they actually changed. But so I attended 2 of them. They were really informative just to understand the different kinds of projects that Alice supports across the country. So they're sort of different in Ontario and Points East, where they do more wetlands and water quality and water retention projects. They do a lot of tree planting and look at biodiversity. And so the third session had to do with quantifying the benefits of the projects that they do. So that was really interesting. We talked about measuring carbon sequestration and with added tree canopies and things like that. And so it was really interesting. And then I just wanted to highlight here that a lot of us attended the Wheatland and Area Surface Rights Society AGM. It was an amazing AGM for that group. They have they invited Premier Smith, who attended, and Ministers MacIver and Cooper. And like, I just really think that that group does an incredible job of making noise to the province, and they're hearing them. Obviously, coming out to standard to their AGM is a huge thing that they've accomplished. So kudos to them. And then I don't have it on my report, but I also did come to the Wheatland tree planting and care workshop, which was really great. The presenter, I think it was scheduled from 6 till 9, and it went till 10. He's just so passionate about it and so knowledgeable. Like, I would recommend, if we hold it again, that anybody go. He talked about the different species that are good for this area. He talked about disease and pruning strategies, I guess. And I realized I probably over prune. You're not supposed to touch them unless there's something wrong, basically. So anyways, I'll put my pruners away maybe a little bit more. So it was amazing. It was awesome. And I highly recommend it to anybody who even has a tree, which I think we all do. So with that, I will move to the board accept my report as presented. If there's any questions, I will happily answer. Member Larson?
Just one, and I'm sure it's just a typo, but when you do Craig and Celeste's last name for the actual award, just make sure it's spelled properly.
Oops, did I do an O-N?
No, you did an I-A, it's an E.
Okay.
It's my cousin's son. Okay. It's, you know.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yep. No other questions? I will call the question then. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. And then next is our Manager of Ag and Environment report.
Good morning again, George here. Just got my Agriculture and Environment 24 second quarter report and resolution tracker. So I'll just go through this fairly quickly. So under the operations category, as of writing this a couple of weeks ago, the department had been at 80 calls from residents and ratepayers and other various people trying to get a hold of us for different things. We've collected 54 bags this year, and we've hauled 54 bags. I know that doesn't seem right, but it is. Seasonal staff are expected to return early April. We have our bait station out in various villages and infrastructure, so we'll have those out until about August. We've completed the locations for brushing that have been identified, gone through some safety stuff regarding fire extinguishers and carbon monoxide detectors in the shop. We've had a couple repairs, cleaning up some things. Unfortunately, our drought resilient crop production workshop was canceled. We only had 7 people registered, so that was very unfortunate. We've got 8 EFPs, 2 in progress, 6 applications for the WRP program, 2 projects completed, and the Sustainable Canada Agriculture Program. Assisted 13 producers with applications, and Alice Wheatland has had 3 projects renewed for another 5 terms and 5 inquiries to date. I'm sure we'll get an update on Alice this afternoon. And under the equipment, equipment repair and servicing ongoing with units and implements. Our rental equipment's being serviced, and traps are being repaired. The old grader mower sprayer unit is being prepped for auction, as is the Tiger unit for mowing. And we are expecting our delivery for our swing arm and mower this spring, and our tractor is expected to be delivered in July. The upcoming event that Shannon had talked about has passed now, and again, we've heard not just from you, Shannon, from other people that really enjoyed that. So I'm really happy that that went well. And Toso, the fellow who presented at this, he is also our contact where we ask for advice regarding our tree project as well. So under the Shelter Belt and Eco Buffer project update, we've submitted our project plan and preliminary budget to TELUS Environmental, who applied to Tree Canada on our behalf. This application has been approved for multi-year funding. Because it was approved on March 15th, the full tree order may not be fulfilled until 25, and the project may need to be phased in smaller site stages to accommodate these limitations. We've talked about that. We did receive a temporary diversion license to irrigate the Rosebud site with water from the river. We've secured a bunch of mulch at no cost from the town of Drumheller, who had stockpiled a bunch regarding a flood mitigation project they had. So that was very nice of the town of Drumheller to help us with that. And we have administration working on logistics of hauling. We had a quote from our irrigation consultant for the administration building here. We're going to evaluate that, and we've been in touch with our utilities team, and we're going to be applying to water and irrigate with wastewater. That's our plan. We're currently in progress on that, and we did conduct some site inspections with the project manager from TELUS, and he was just absolutely over the moon with this project. So he especially liked, well, he liked all of it, but especially the Rosebud site really resonated with him, right? Because it's right in town and accessible to people in town. And then this site as well for just ease of access. People can just park, and you know, the Carsland Lagoon site is good. They can park at the fire hall as well. So he was just really happy about this. So we're still continuing to explore tree species composition, design, and site preparation planning. And our proposed planting start date is May 3rd. So that's coming up real quick. We have a lot of irons in the fire on this project, and we're feeling pretty good about it. If we do have to phase in some of the projects here and there, we've talked about that there are limitations, and that we're just gonna go along and do the best we can. So it'll get done eventually. So please let me know if you have any questions or comments.
Thanks, George. Yeah, very exciting projects coming forward here. It'll be really great to see them start to get implemented and see the fruits of those labors. So any questions for George? Member Link?
I'll move that we accept the report as information, April 3rd, 2024 agricultural fieldman's report.
Thank
The
you.
recommendation.
Yeah. I rarely hear you stumble over a resolution. I'm glad to hear you're a little human. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. There's another resolution if anybody cares to make it. Member Link.
I can also move to accept the updated ASB resolution tracker as information.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? Oh, sorry, we never really, did we go through the resolution tracker actually? It's on the package, that's fine. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. All right, the last thing on our agenda is correspondence. And Member DeSmet had added one piece of correspondence that was received from the Office of Minister of Municipal Affairs, the Honorable Rick McIver, a letter addressed to the Wheatland and Area Surface Rights Society. He's kind of written a letter after having attended the AGM. And I guess the one thing that I will just point out is in his last paragraph, he does say, I am currently exploring options for a potential review of the LPRT's business processes and mandate. So that does sound kind of encouraging. I guess it's again where we wait to see whether the Surface Rights Society is included in that is the key, I think, that we're looking for. So through Member DeSmet, I hope that we'll continue communicating and finding out just exactly what he ends up proposing.
Right. I do hope he does some amendments, but we were still disappointed that there wasn't any kind of task force set up with the interested parties, landowners, and to help on the task force for sure. ASBs. I think that they still are not quite understanding of what our plight is with our asks through that resolution that went through the ASB, which I'll just read those out. Contractual negotiations being fully paid by energy operators. So when they go to the LPRT, a lot of those costs are not being paid. The lawyer costs, the amount of time that, like Brian had said too, the amount of time that he put into preparing to go into the meeting was not even considered, and it's not keeping the landowner whole. So we were just more concerned about them actually follow the Surface Rights Act and implementation of mandatory mediation. That's not happening. Improved timeliness, they said they are working on that. And of course, the clarity of terms used in the Surface Rights Act. So, we're hopeful that more things come out of it.
Yes. Any other discussion or comments on any of the correspondence in our package? A motion to accept the information as information then? Accept the correspondence as information? Sorry, did I see Member DeSmet?
I'll move that the correspondence be brought as information.
Thank you. Any discussion? Member Larson?
Since we have all the letters listed there, should we add this one into that motion? Because I don't see it listed there.
Oh, no, it is not listed.
It's at the bottom of the motion, Minister of Municipal Affairs letter.
Oh, way down there. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Good enough. Thanks, Shanna.
She's got us. Any other discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. That takes us to the end of our agenda. I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone.